AFL Fantasy, it's back. Welcome. Well, it's been back for a while. I'm back. The big dog. The Joker. The Rooster. The guy. That's me. I thought I'd just make a video, just talk about all of my players that I currently have and thought processes behind them before the second round of preseason games starts. Just for context, for context for me in the future, when I maybe watch this next year and the year after, blah, 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 just to get my thought process and things, see what I get wrong and right. But before that, I'm just going to talk about some of the things I liked last year that I got right and what I got wrong, just for maybe people can also take some value into what I am going to talk about here. Like, for one, premiums that I missed that just ruined my season basically, and it didn't matter that I picked some pretty popping like value picks, which I think is it's the best thing I am at fantasy, is like netting those like below 500k players that really pop off and make serious cash gen. The main one being last year would be Jaden Hunt. I started Jaden Hunt last year, and he was pretty key to people that to the player that won the car. Fairly certain he started with him or traded into him very early, but people that were up there, he was one of the key guys you had to have. But then there was like English, who I picked like my first selection in draft, but didn't start him. Weird to see those two thoughts, like personally, when I'm looking back. Like, yes, I was looking for value, but why would I not start English if I had him as my first pick at like the 8th pick or something like that? And now he's the first pick coming into the next season's draft and stuff for a lot of people. But yeah, players that I missed, like Dacos. I started McGrath ahead of Dacos. What a nightmare that was all season. English, Green. Those are the three off the top of my head that I can really think ruined my season because they just popped off so heavily at the start. And then I had players like Laddams, who was just an absolute bust. McRae, I started McRae. He was awful. Yeah, off the top of my head, that's who I can think of. McGrath, like I said, he was dreadful. And a few other players I got right at the right moments. Like I was on Butters just as he got back into the midfield. So I was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the comp with Butters. I was on Flanders very early as soon as he got that like 50-50 split, but it didn't really matter then. I was out of the frame for a hat or whatever. Like, second half of the year, I slowly gave up because, once you're in that 10 to 15k bracket with like 10 rounds to go, it's just a bit, is it worth the time, yada yada. But anyways, I was on Zeeble very early. I wanted to start him, but I was on him pretty early anyways. So yeah, I'm really good at those value picks, I think. Yeah, I'll just go into my team now and just talk through everyone, because I've been just listening to way too much content and stuff. Like, it's really consuming like the last part of summer for me here. It's just, I'm sure you're the same if you're watching this, just wanting to listen to everything basically. But I will go through my team. There's a few players here that might be a bit questionable for you, but yeah, we'll start with Sheasel, I guess. D1. It's either him or Stewart for my D1. I'm still 50-50 coming into these rounds, these preseason games. Sheasel just looks like he could be Dacos from last year, but also Stewart has a really good run to start the year. It's very tough right now to split the two. The only concern with Sheasel is with Fisher in the team, whether or not they share those half-back duties, or Sheasel pushes up the ground like some people have been talking about. It's hard to tell, but he just looked ridiculously good in that first preseason game. So it's in there for now. We'll see how he goes this next week when North should be pretty strong. in terms of their lineup, so we'll see what happens there. Yeah. Jeez, it's going to be long if I'm talking about that. Each player like this for a while. D2, a notable absence here is Hayden Young, which a lot of people have. My thoughts behind not having him right now is that watching Freo against the Eagles, yes, you can't take too much out of it, but I just thought he's already priced at 90. How much can he have value going into that role when Brayshaw, Sarong, Fife, then a bit of Johnson, maybe Erasmus. I mean, it's obviously stated that he's going to be likely that third midfielder, but from what I saw, he just doesn't seem that natural as a midfielder and might struggle for points accumulation, at least early in the season. He's still a decent pick for me. He might end up back in my team, just seeing how this next game goes for them, but he just looked, I don't know, like he wasn't really going to be that 100+ guy that we think he is, and he is priced at 90 already. I'm just thinking, like, is there better value elsewhere? And with Young going into the midfield, I've been keen on Clark. I was like pretty keen on him before the preseason games. I was ready to watch, see what his role is. He is a bit of a preseason pig, but he does seem to have that role sort of tied up for himself in the back line with Young in the midfield. Ryan is not 100%, and I think early and for most of the season he could contest for that top 6 defenders. If Freo have that chippity chip game they sort of like to play, he's a good player. He's very young. He's due a breakout. He's a good player. He definitely has the capability to go. What's he priced at? 76. He has the capability to go at least 86 plus this year, which is a good pick in my opinion. Wouldn't be surprised if he's in the 90s. If anything like his preseason game was to go by, was against the Eagles, but again, it's like he had that good halfback role, took some kick-ins, and you know what you're looking for in a player. Elliot Yeo, D3. Don't know how much I need to say here. He's quite surprising. I got him in at like 5% ownership, and he's 21% now. He's just rocketed up everyone's value sheets, I guess, because he hasn't had an injury, and he looked good in midfield. Don't know how much I really need to say there. Yeah, if no injury concerns come up, I think you have to start him as like the Eagles' like number 1 midfielder, I guess. So yeah, for now he's there. D4, Connor Buderick. Looks like he has that sort of Jaden Short role that everyone says Hardwick's trying to give him. It is a very good value pick if he goes 80-ish, but I wouldn't mind having Kadeem Coleman in this position as well. As you can see, Caulfield on my bench. I'll get to him in a sec. Yeah, still need to see a bit more from Buderick with Powell, and I think Weller's injured at the moment. I'm not sure when he's back. But Buderick and Sexton, as you can see there, I'm a bit skeptical of these guys until Gold Coast are full strength. They've played their next preseason game. They go into opening round. We'll see there if they're still on my team, but they do have, like, Buderick does have a halfback role where he can accumulate, and he's a decent player. Like, he's just been hampered by, you know, knee injuries and stuff throughout his career so far. So yeah, I'm surprised he's only at 2.3%. Like, he's been talked about a decent amount. I would have thought he was a bit higher, but here's what it is. D5, Massimo D'Ambrosio. I think if this guy is named round 1, I'm probably going to start him against the Dogs in the preseason game. He looked really good. Like, he looked like a good player, and he accumulated and he got a decent fantasy score, but he just looked really good, and it looked like he fit into that Hawks side really well. And the Hawks are capable of, you know, like kicking it around a heap, like Sicily last year. I think he's very good value if he's in the Hawks' best 22, which I think he is. He looked like one of the better players against the Bulldogs. I don't know if anyone else watched it, but he really impressed me. So he's in my team for now, and bearing he's not there round 1, which I think he will be. His ownership is also quite low, I think. Yeah, 1.77%. There's a lot of low ownership players, I think, for me. Jordan Clark's also surprisingly low, 5%, surprising. I feel like he'll jump up before the season starts. D6, Zach Williams. He is, as long as he's named round 1 or plays opening round and gets a decent enough score, I'll pick him, even if he's skeptical of playing this preseason game and stuff. He's just so cheap. He's capable of getting 120 on his day, so I think if he's named, you have to start him. He's highly owned, like, I don't know how much I need to say about him. If he gets a 70, probably plays in my team round 1. And coming into the reserves or bench, having Caulfield, I think, also subject to change if he's not named round 1. But if Caulfield's named round 1, I like him on the bench with this Phillips guy, who I think I'll play interchangeable with Pink and Phillips, whichever one of those two players. Phillips looked like he could score okay, especially at the Hawks, where they like to kick it around a bit in the defense. Caulfield I have at D7. Because of Buderick and Williams' early buys, I think it's a very good way to cover a position. Even though it is best 18, I think it's a good way of covering a position over the course of that round 2 and round 3 from memory. And yeah, he could score well. It's just like if he scores really well in the first round, obviously I miss out on that score. But I think it's a good way to cover having these two on your team. And the same thing goes with Kadeem Coleman. If I start him, I think what I would do is find a way to get Coleman in place of Buderick. Maybe drop down Marshall, who I'll get to someone to get Coleman in that position. But I also, if Caulfield's not named, I'd be happy to drop him to, like Pink and jump up Buderick to Coleman. Those are some things I'm looking at as strategy for the season. So yeah, Coleman's just on the outer for me, just because of the buy, and Buderick's cheaper, but definitely high on the watch list, considering how well he can score if he's keen to play a full game of footy the way he did the grand final, which gets talked about a lot. But yeah, Pink is there for me. If he's named, like I said with Phillips, probably end up only picking one of those two, or might do both. I think Curtin might not be best 22, and another guy I am keen on that is probably outside the best 22 is Parnell. I think this is a really important guy to watch this year if he gets named in the Crows team. As a Crows fan watching him, I think he's best 22 considering some of the backline kicks in our team. He's a really good kick, and it's clear that his role, if he's in the team, he is taking kick-outs, and he's one of those players that the Crows would look to pass it out of defense, because he's a really good kick and can take a hanger, of course. So yeah, he's really one to watch throughout the season. I would suggest everybody watch him closely. I just don't think he'll be there at the start of the year, unfortunately. So yeah, coming into the midfield, Errol Goulden, picked out of the premiums for a captain option. He comes up against Collingwood in the first game, where he had his season high of, ladies and gentlemen, 161. No Parker in the team, more responsibility. He has come into my side today after just looking at the Swans' early fixtures. This was Dawson for basically all of preseason, but I've sort of faded Dawson reluctantly because I think I need to have Goulden over him, and I'll get to Crouch in a sec, the resurgence of Crouch in the team, who might take a few of those points or might not from Dawson. I think Dawson could go 115 plus this year. It just remains to be seen how the Crows what are they gonna do differently this year. The likes of Shelley, Rankin, obviously Crouch is going to be there, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, Goulden just looked 90 points, it seemed he got around there in a half a footy against the Giants. This guy is probably going to be one of the best fantasy guys for the next, how old is he? 21, for the next 5-10 years. Like, he is a thirsty mercenary, he wants the ball. Is pig trotters. He's just a monster. He's a fantasy monster. And he's only 21, so just gets better. Imagine him when he's 26, 25. What the hell is this guy going to be doing if he keeps this roll up? He'll be Swan's number one midfielder by far. Scary. He's a beast. Second midfielder, this is an interesting one. Treloar. I know a lot of people, well, basically everyone, writes Treloar off because his hamstrings are done, but he hasn't missed any time this preseason. So what I like to think about each player is that even if they have an injury history, you can't deny them against anyone else if they have had a full preseason with no hindrances, unless they're like 32, 33, which would be like a Mitch Duncan. Mitch Duncan hasn't had any problems in preseason, but he's one that, very old and he could be rested or whatever. But Treloar, I think, is a really good pivot off of Bontempelli. I feel like the Dogs do have a really good start to the year. And look, Treloar, at the end of the season, his last 5 average was 117. Bont's was like 120 as well. But I think I'm sort of gambling on Treloar possibly outscoring Bont to start the year, like the first sort of 5 to 6 games, with just no ownership, basically. I think he's the second main guy, possibly first if Bont, is playing forward more, which I sort of doubt. But he's just the second guy in there. He's not going to get tagged when Bont's in the team. Maybe even third guy with like Liberatore. He's definitely more of a tag option or shutdown option for players than Treloar. So I just think Treloar is just going to go unnoticed this year, and people forget he averaged like 115 at Collingwood when he had that really good midfield role, and reports talking about how the Dogs are going to be playing a bit slower, that, I guess, more kick to mark game. That's the only way I can assume a team plays slower, is if you're kicking and marking uncontested more. That was kind of more of the Nathan Brown coaching era with Collingwood, and that's when Treloar absolutely dominated. So I think Treloar can get to, like, wishful thinking 115 this year, but he could, I feel like he could push 110 if he's healthy. So yeah, I'm very keen on a pivot off of Bontempelli with whatever his ownership is with Bont, like 25, quarter of the comp has Bont. I really like him as a pivot off of Bontempelli, because Bont didn't start the year that well last year. Highly doubt he does that again, but I really like Treloar, like I said, as a pivot, just a point of difference against basically everyone. And as a Dog with a good fixture coming into the season, so I'm very keen on him. So as long as he stays healthy, I think if I'm going for the car, he's the kind of guy I like. Totally different. No one has him. See how it goes. You never know. M3, Jack Steele, quite high ownership, but I feel like he's a bit like Tom Green of last year, when can't remember exactly what Green averaged. I think it was a bit lower than 97, but not in terms of like natural progression, but I think still can jump up to that 105, 110 area again. Like a lot of people do think that. He was definitely injured and dealing with problems of some sort. He's mentioned that last year, and he did have his moments last year, but as long as he looks healthy coming into this next preseason game, he hasn't really moved from my team all year since I started it. I think Steele, Jai Clark, and those are probably the two guys that have stayed in besides Sanders and McKercher. Those are the guys that have just not moved from my team all year. So yeah, and then coming into M4, Matt Crouch. This is a toss-up between him, Wines, Nick Martin. I just think Crouch is the best fantasy option. A bit cheaper than Nick Martin. And I am skeptical of Nick Martin's defensive role. Coming into the real thing, what if he goes wing for 1 or 2 games and doesn't get defender status? Like, that's a disaster. He does look like he's playing that halfback role, but yeah, I'm just assuming DPP can be a bit risky in some situations. So yeah, Crouch just looks like he'll be in the Crows team. I am a bit skeptical of his time on ground. I think he'll be a bit lower than what you would want, but he's a good fantasy player. If he's playing, he should be able to get at least 95 plus, and he could go 105, which is just a smash. So we'll see how Crouchy goes. I want some Crows exposure because I love the Crows. I would love him to be Dawson, but it is what it is. You've only got so much bloody cash. M5, I have 5 here. This one's a bit interesting because if I get to my forward line, I just want to squeeze all of these guys in, but it only works with 5 at M5, like a mid-forward option. So yeah, I want to have 5 in my team. What I would like to assume I can do coming into the Gold Coast bye is maybe trade Sexton out and push 5 into the forward line for a midfielder. That's the optimal situation I would like, because I don't like Sexton's job security in that halfback role. If Weller comes in and Power comes in, I don't see how they both fit. But yeah, 5 there for now. He looks the goods. Bit of a risk with getting subbed early, but that's never really been a thing for the most part with players. I mean, Zorko had it happen a bit last year, but they probably want 5 like in the last quarter of close games and things like that. So he's playing midfield. He looked really good against West Coast, about 20 electric hand passes. It's good enough for me. We'll see how he goes in the year. What's his value? Yeah, he's really high ownership, so a bit of safety in numbers there as well. So that's good. And coming into M6, guys, this is the hat-winning pick right here. I'm telling you, like this guy, Bonner. I was interested in him before his preseason game, right? And that only confirmed things because he was the highest scorer. But this guy, he's the secret sauce. I'm telling you. If he's in the round 1 team for St Kilda, I'm very knowing of Bonner's game, and it absolutely suits the St Kilda sort of defense line to a T. He's really good at spreading and getting those marks, kicking down the line. Finding not necessarily always easy possessions, but he's a good distributor, and he can't really play lockdown, I don't think, that well. So I really like Bonner because, like I said with Nick Martin, I'm skeptical of DPP assumption, but because this guy's so much cheaper, it's not as big of a deal. But he is also definitely in that defensive line. He scored 110 in that practice game against the Bombers, and I think he can really thrive, like Jaden Hunt did last year for the Eagles, in a similar role where it's just a lot of loose possessions, a lot of marks. Kicked a really good goal as well in that game. So yeah, it only really I was very interested in how Bonner went in that preseason game, and he dominated. He was probably the best player for Saints. So if he's in that best 22, I think I have to pick him. 0.63% ownership. This is the one, guys. This is the car. This is the car right here. I'm telling you. Bonner equals car. Deluxe. As long as he's there. As long as he's there. There was no Sinclair, but I think he'll be there. I think he'll be there. And it's also, if Bonner's named, if anyone's starting Wanganeen Miller, I would be fading him if Bonner's playing. I think Bonner actually might take a lot of those easier possessions and kick-ins, actually. I forgot to say that. Bonner was taking kick-ins as well, so, like, he was taking kick-ins. He was taking kick-ins, so what more can you want from someone like that? I won't talk about McKercher and Sanders because they're just locks. Clark, also a lock if he's named. Maybe he comes onto my field if he's named in the best 22 or the starting lineup. Bit of a sub-risk, but if he's playing the center bounces with Guthrie out, I think he'll be pretty good. I think he could go like an 80 round one or something like that, Roberts gets a bit more job security with Parker with that injury, so he's there for now. There's only really one other guy that I'm interested in these rookies at the moment, and that's Wilson for the Saints if he's named. But yeah, Roberts is there for now. Coming into the rucks, obviously I don't have a Gawn or Grundy here. I've just been thinking recently, or basically today, that it might be better, because I'm a bit skeptical of Grundy's ceiling for the Swans. I think he's a little washed. Still a good player, he'll ruck well, but I don't know if he's capable of getting, those extra points from marks across the field and possessions. He just seems a bit slow. He was good, he tackled well against the Giants, but is he really going to get 8 tackles a game in the real thing when the game's a lot faster? I don't know. Obviously, he's a good value pick, but I just like Cherry at a lower price. I think they could be similar in scoring this year. So yeah, that's why I've sort of faded Grundy. And most people, when you fade Grundy because they think Cherry's like more important, like he's the most important ruck to have. Some people don't. Some people have Grundy instead. But a lot of people are thinking, oh, we'll go up to Gawn then because he does represent value. But Gawn's getting old. I mean, I've seen people say he could go 110 as the sole guy there. I mean, yes, he should be good. There's no one else there. He's a fine pick. I may end up like dropping Marshall down to Gawn because I need the cash. But I've been thinking like maybe Gawn starts off slow. He does verse some decent rucks in the start of the season. What if he does go that sort of 90, 95 because Melbourne aren't playing that well? I know there's a few things that could happen. He could blow it out of the water as the best player for Melbourne. But I don't know. I'm not too sold on Gawn. We will see what happens opening round, So, remains to be seen. And I'm picking Marshall over English just because I think Marshall, the teams he versus, it's like a 120-ish average coming into the guys he's versing for the start of the year. I think he's just has a bit more upside than English, especially concerning English maybe having another interrupted preseason a little bit with those headaches or whatever. It doesn't really sound like much, but I think Marshall will hit the racetrack, whatever the saying is, guns blazing or whatever. He looked really good against Essendon, just in like second gear. He was kind of dominating low key. You wouldn't really see him, but scored really well. So yeah, I think Rowan Marshall for now is my selection there at Ruck 1. Could change, but he's only 7% ownership. Like, what if Gawn goes, 95, Grundy goes 90, English goes like 100, and Marshall goes 140 because he's versing a 35-year-old retired Reece Stanley, should retire Reece Stanley, or a rookie in Toby Conway. Who the hell is getting in Marshall's way for that first game of the season? Stanley at 30-10, at 300 years old? unlikely. And then I got Cherry there, looked really good against Cameron, and scored really well against Collingwood. And there's no bye problems for me with the rucks with this setup as well. So yeah, Cherry, I mean, you could find a million talking points for, so I won't go into him too much. And then I have Colin Livingston here just because Matt Flynn went down. He's out for 2 or 3 months with that hamstring injury. He looked okay in the game against Freo, so maybe he gets an early game. I'm not too set on him holding that, but getting a game. But having an Eagle there, the Eagles have a lot more Sunday games where you could flick him on for a VC loophole. I think he's ahead of that Harry Barnett guy, just because I don't think Barnett played on the weekend. This guy's at like 10%, 9% ownership. I think Colin's more of a chance of getting in the team than what's his name, Barnett, because he looked like he could kick straight at goal. Might get a bit of ruck time as well. He looked okay, and he looked a likely type. Who knows? But anyways, yeah, F1 Flanders. He's been in my team most of the year. I thought about not starting him because of his bye a little bit, but I don't know. I think you have to start Flanders. He's the only sort of premium option we've got in the forward line. And we've got opening round to decide on how we go. If he doesn't have a game where his break even is low, maybe I won't start him. You know, like if he scores like a 70 to 80, he will have the good role. Maybe he's not a start because you're not missing too much value early on because he's not going up in price, and then he has a really early buy, so maybe you can fade him there. He's one just to watch, especially with that opening round. So yeah, we get a free hit with a lot of those kind of guys. Adams is very similar in that thought process, but with Parker out, I think he gets a boost in usage to the point where I thought I had to squeeze him into my team. Still haven't seen him for the Swans yet, but yeah, again, we'll see opening round and the preseason games happening today and onwards. So I think I have to have him in my team just for now as that F2. Something I would maybe think about is dropping Adams out and then putting Fife into the forward line, finding a good midfielder I can squeeze in for him. But for now, it's Adams there. F3, Fisher, if he's named, I think you have to start him. He looked like he was going to score phenomenally well in that role, so not too much to think about there with Fisher. If he's named, I think you have to start him for North. Jordan looks like he's nailed, especially with Parker out, that wing, maybe a little bit of midfield time, half forward sort of role for the Swans. I think he's capable of being a really good scorer, like we know. So yeah, he's a good value pick there, 450k. Surprised he's that low owned, to be honest. I would have thought he'd be in like the 30% range. I guess it's a bit interesting there, but I can see him being 80 for the first 3 or 4 games. Coming into his bye, you can trade him out, grab a premium. Basically, that's the goal. Yeah, F5 Cam McKenzie. I guess similar thoughts with him with Jordan, but McKenzie's definitely going to get more midfield time than Jordan. He's a bit cheaper and looked like a likely scorer. His price is sort of a bit busted from some of this. He had quite a few sub roles last year, so he is a capable scorer. Looking to see how it goes against Essendon, because Essendon looked diabolical. I could see McKenzie getting a 90 and just popping up his price, and you're flying if you get a 90 from McKenzie week 1, you know? It is what it is. I won't talk about him too much because I like him there. And then Sexton, everyone's sort of jumping on because he's that half-back spot. If he's there, pick him, obviously. Opening round is this cheat code we've all got, so We'll see how that goes. If Sexton scored like a 60 in that role, maybe you don't pick him because he's not going to have that massive cash gen ability. But sorry, I'm sniffling a bit here. But I think you just have to pick him if he's in that role. I am just very concerned with him and Buderick when Weller and Powell are in the team. We'll see what happens. Like I said, opening round, bit of a cheat code. In the forward rookies, we've got Cadman and Lazaro. Lazaro looks like he's in the team, a forward pushing up into midfield. Could go a 70, it looks like. That's what I think he will be going at. And then Cadman has the ability against North, the West Coast early, to kick 6 or 7 goals in those 2 games. He looked a lot better than he did last year in that preseason hit out. So yeah, he hasn't really moved, Cadman, for a bit now. I'm quite keen to see how he goes this week coming, and we've got opening round for him as well. So if he scores a 50 or 60 against whoever they're playing, I'm not sure. I'm prepared to lock him in there. Another guy he could end up being is that Wilson guy I talked about for the Saints. And if I find the cash, Windsor. Those are the only other 2 sort of guys I'm looking at. Or Reed, obviously. If you can't see, Reed isn't in my team. Controversial opinion. He did not look good as a scorer for fantasy in that game. It looked like he's just going to get moved around the ground a lot with the Eagles. He didn't look like he was capable of being that accumulator off halfback. It just didn't really suit him, I don't think, and I don't think he's used to it. He took a few kick-ins. It looked obviously really good the way he took on the game. But, yeah, I don't know about how he goes at the start of the year. I don't really want to have him on my field just watching that game. We'll see how he goes the next hit out. I can't remember if West Coast have an opening round game. I don't think they do. But he's a massive fade against everyone else who most will have on field. And if he gets like a 27 like he did in the practice game, like that is no bueno. So for now, not in my team. And then I just got Jeremy Sharp in the utility. I actually don't think there's a good chance he's not named round 1 for Freo, but he's just a placeholder there for now. I think O'Driscoll and Johnson are the preferred wings for Freo, with whoever else rotating. Sharp could be a decent shout for the sub. So we'll see what happens there. I am a bit skeptical of Sharp. You'd think he's in the team, but yeah, I'm just a bit skeptical. Like I said, we'll see how it goes. Again, there's lots to play out. But yeah, that's everyone. I'll go through a few players that I don't have. A lot of people obviously have Dacos. I just think I looked at Collingwood fixtures. He can't hurt me this year because he's basically fully priced. Too much. Can he? He can't, can he? But obviously everyone is kind of aware of that Hawks game where McGuinness will probably tag him. I think someone like Jordan might go to him against the Swans. Rowbottom, I think he might get a bit of a shutdown against Sydney. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's tagged in the St Kilda game as well, to be honest, by someone. I just think he really is like the main guy for Collingwood, and if you shut him down, Collingwood actually aren't as good. They're like one of the only teams where a tag really kind of works these days, I think. He would probably just end up going to a halfback, but then like he's no good at defending, so that's the best way forward for enemies of Collingwood. Obviously, we'll want him in our teams at some stage, but yeah, I don't know. Just under 50% own him. You can flip a coin for him, really. It's just, he's got a bye as well, so maybe he doesn't start the season as hot as people suspect, and yeah, if you're on the right side of that call, you're probably another step of the way to a hat, you know? Each player is like a step towards a hat. And the car, you know, we're looking for one of those, like a leg up from every position. And then obviously trade for your lives. And then I think I got some decent favorites here. Sort of went through Dawson already. Stewart, I don't know why Josh Dacos is there. Gorn have gone through. Setterfield, I don't know why he's there. Maybe he's a sneaky draft option for me. I'll just say that. Hayden Young, I've gone through. Guthrie, I think I favorited early. I think some of these are draft favorites, actually. Spoiling a bit here. An interesting pod would be Hunt again this year. He looked like the main guy off of halfback. I don't think you can do it, but he's there. Another guy I'm interested in is Rankin. I think he's going to have better midfield acumen than Rochelle this year. He looked like the fourth guy ahead of Rochelle, and obviously he can get forward and kick goals, but I think he's playing more up the ground. I could see a world where he's like 85 to 90, and also pops off this to start the year. He's a massive barometer for the Crows this year, I think, if they want to challenge for finals. Yeah, Harms is another interesting one I've sort of had in my team a bit. I just don't think he's going to have enough opportunity when the Bulldogs are full strength. He's one to watch for me personally. McDonald doesn't have a good role. He's been in my team a bit this preseason. Powell is another interesting one I have been looking at. He's one to watch in the opening... Well, sorry, not the opening round. The next preseason game. If he's one of the main guys in the centre bounce rotations, I think I'll have to squeeze him in because he's capable of scoring when he has a midfield role, playing as a midfielder like he did when he was young. He was drafted as a midfielder. Play him in the midfield north, for God's sakes. They just have so many guys there. Powell should be in the midfield for North, and if he is, I think I have to pick him because he's a good player. Billings, bit colder on. I'm surprised he's that low owned, but could see him being 75, 80-ish. Having a few 90 scores there is just a bit off and on for me. And yeah, if Conway's named, he's the last guy I guess I'll talk about. If Conway's named round one, I think you have to start him because it means he's preferred over Stanley. Don't know how good his scoring will be, but if Conway's named, it would probably force me to drop Marshall to Gawn because then I have Conway to cover Gawn when his bye is coming up. I don't know how well Conway will go scoring, but you'd expect him to make some cash as opposed to a guy that isn't making any cash if Livingston isn't there. So yeah, I think that's everyone. That is most of my thoughts coming into the second preseason hit out and then opening round. I might make a video after opening round and go through the team then. But yeah, that's it. See you till footy goes footy, and then we'll do some more footy. Let's go. Bye.